Hello, everyone out there in Twitch chat land or on YouTube watching the VOD after, and welcome to episode 3 of Worlds After Dark, following day 3 of the World's 2020 play-ins. I'm Drakos, joined by Froskurinn as well as Spawn. I was watching your stream to see if it actually swapped over because I was like hella nervous that you were AFK. I'm joined by Froskurinn in between us. He was here for episode 1. He's here again. He'll be here a lot. It's none other than Spawn, international analyst, not limited to just the OPL as we learned in episode 1. A man of many talents.
A reminder, guys, you can follow Spawn at SpawnLol. Be sure to get them follows in. We're boosting the numbers. You guys did pretty weak the first time around. I think it was only 1,000 follower boost there. I think we can double those numbers. I think those are rookie numbers. We can get them up.
Pump those numbers
I hope
up,
so.
David.
Yeah, I hope so, because like when I see 3,000 people in the chat and I see 1,000 people, and especially when 2,000 people haven't at least tweeted at me to tell me that I'm a piece of shit, like I just feel like there's at least 2,000 people that still feel nothing. And as I said last time, we're all about feeling something in Worlds After Dark. You got to feel something, chat.
Cadril might have gotten 1 million appreciation threads today, but Spawn just wants 1 million followers. And tell me what's easier, clicking a follow button or writing an appreciation thread? And I think you know the answer, chat. So get in there, at SpawnLol. It's where you need to be. Anyway, this is After Dark. It's the talk show about Worlds and all things League of Legends. It will be unfiltered, which means we can call people fucking bad, which is great because it turns out if you watch today's games, there was a lot of bad League of Legends. And so to kick things off, we're going to pick up where we left off yesterday. And Spawn, we had a segment yesterday called What Fucking Happened? We talked about LGD. And yet, despite talking about them yesterday and seemingly answer the question, bullshit continued to happen today. So let's talk about what the fuck happened with LGD. They have made it out. They have just scraped out of the group, just barely, as we expected from the 4th seed from a premier region. It's just standard now. But what the fuck happened? Yeah, let's talk about it.
Well, yeah, I mean, this is really interesting to me, right? Because when you have a look at how LGD was playing the first time, we had kind of question marks about them. And that was, when I was on the show first, it was that they were being very slow, methodical, and then they were just making crucial mistakes. And today, I actually think the gameplay sped up a little bit. I mean, this is a team that was able to generate a 6,000 gold lead. They had like 6 turrets as well. But the mistakes just keep happening. And the issue is that off the back end of those mistakes, they're not team fighting particularly well. So if you're not keeping your lead and playing a solid macro game, you at least have to be able to, 5v5 and be able to take over, either dragons or heralds, barons, things like that. But unfortunately for LGD, they're just kind of dropping the ball across the board. Now, luckily for them, there was a worse team in the group. The LJL is not a region that is renowned for producing world-class talent. And I am quite sure that if LGD actually got seeded against the Brazilians, which is the other worst region in the world, that they might have been eliminated off the back of that game, because it still wasn't anything spectacular. But, their solo laners finally stepped up. They started to generate some solo kills and stuff like that. But this is definitely not the team I expected to see on the world stage.
I'd like to almost rename this segment like the Frosk Freakout, because I was actually losing my shit watching LGD today. I was like, I said yesterday that you either have to pick between not having hands or not having a brain. And LG right now, it's a perfect circle and where those Venn diagrams intersect, and you must pick one. After we upgraded the Black Cleaver instead of the Death Cap, after we upgraded the Looting Decal, we doubled down on it. I was just losing my shit at the screen. I was like, this is unacceptable right now. How many of these mistakes have to happen? And the fact that they can't team fight at all. They walk up to every single dragon. They're like, okay. And then Peanut goes one way. The rest of his team goes another way. It's very clear that they can't talk to each other or are choosing not to talk to each other. They look so disconnected. Target selection is god awful. Cooldown use and chaining of cooldowns is fucking atrocious. Oh my god, I literally said this is one of the worst wins I've ever seen when I saw LGD win a game, and I will stand by that. It is not good. It looks like solo queue.
And you're baited because yesterday we talked a lot about we want Peanut on a kid, something that he played domestically. We want that Kindred coming out, and he picks the Kindred, and you're like, ooh, exciting. You're like Ornn for Longshank. He gets the Ornn. You see the start of the game, Longshank gets just, that pop and solo kill. You're like, yes, LGD are alive. And then within 10 minutes, you're like, oh, god damn it, no, they're not. They're going to win this game, but it's just a fucking disaster. And then it was the same emotional roller coaster repeated again when they played UOL later in the day, and we saw 2 back-to-back solo kills in lane. because No Man's was just fucking hard trolling. Apparently, just couldn't read Silas's kit.
I
like,
mean,
has just never
Boss
seen
was
it.
down like 50 CS as well, right? It was that both of their solo laners were getting domed. This wasn't just a issue for No Man's. Boss was like getting pummeled in the laning phase as well.
What kills me is like their LGD's laning phase is like okay. That's probably the best part of their game right now. As long as no one's interacting with anyone else. As soon as Peanut shows up in that lane, shit goes sideways. As soon as they're setting up for objectives, there is no setup here. As soon as there's coordination through team fights, I'm just like, just stay in lane phase. Just extend that shit for like ever. And the thing is Kramer is known as Farmer Kramer in the LPL because what they'll do is they'll often play cross map and just like kick Kramer out to a side lane. He builds these like massive CS leads, is constantly picking up plates and like rocks up to a team fight and just nukes everyone. Like, just keep doing that. I think LGD should just separate, like divide and conquer, never group up.
The issue was is that when Kramer was grouping, right, he was getting caught as well. So like I was kind of on like your bandwagon. I was thinking about like, you know, what are the strengths, you know, how can we shoot this? But the issue is even their strengths are just playing very badly at the moment. And like I'm not all that down on LGD because they've got the additional game of practice. They're about to play the additional best of 5 of practice. This is a team that's going to stroll into groups. Then they're going to do fine in groups on the main stage. And then they're going to make a quarterfinal and they'll probably bow out gracefully against like, you know, a tier 1 Korean team or something like that. And everyone will be like, wow, 4th seed of LPL, still pretty good. Let's give them another world spot next year and do this shit all over again, right? But like, there's just so much pain before I actually get to that reward of, you know, getting to see them lose against Damwon or DRX.
Here's the thing. Which one is more... This is like the best this or that question. And if it's not used on the slideshow when that content piece comes out, I'm going to be upset. What is more painful? 2020 LGD or 2015 LGD?
Oh, definitely this one, because 2015 LGD had like, that was a roller coaster. You have to remember in some of those games, Imp was doing like 43% of his team damage, up like 100 CS. They did the Mordekaiser, the Gangplank trade, and then Gragas bugged out in that game and they literally eliminated EDG from the tournament because like as soon as Gragas was like disabled for Worlds, like Clearlove was like, well, I can't play the game anymore. Like you've really fucked this one up for me, haven't you? So like across the board, that LGD team was at least entertaining. This LGD team is boring and bad, which is a terrible mix for League of Legends.
Don't worry, Origin, no.
Oh my god. But like this is just hot. This is a hot mess. I mean, at least they're doing stuff, right? Like that's the one thing that we can say. At least it's not the boring version of a team that just sits there and slowly loses the game. They very actively lose the game. Like it looks like a conscious effort sometimes. We can give them that kind of credit that they're very willing to throw it all away. But someone in the chat had a good question, so I'm just going to echo it. And it's just like for a lot of people at home who don't watch the LPL, they see LGD come in and shit the bed, and suddenly I think they're a lot less scared of the LPL.
This is not indicative of the LPL.
When you evaluate the top 3.
I'm not as high on Suning as I think Spawn is, but that is an interesting discussion. I think it's like JDG, TES, TS, JDG, whichever way you want to rank them, and then I think there's a really big gap between Suning, and then a really big gap between Suning and LGD. I did not expect LGD to be this bad. Like, I knew that they weren't close to JDG and TES, but I still have been quite shocked about this.
Yeah.
I gotta open my spreadsheet again, right? Because like I had this prepared and then I thought we moved on, so I actually closed the website. So just bear with me for 1 second, Drakos, while I reopen it, right? Okay.
What? Refresh? Why am I refreshing? What's happening?
Your stream crashed for a second. You're fine. It's running now.
Is it okay?
I don't know.
Can chat hear me? Because if they can't hear me, I'm fucking out.
Losing it.
But what I was gonna say, and like I finally reopened it, right? So Top went 13-3, JDG went 13-3. Neither of these teams will lose an LGD. Like, don't worry about it, chat. Like, you know, that you can say that this like lowers the LPL overall because it does. Like, as much as they don't want to admit that this is an LPL team playing at Worlds right now, newsflash, it is. But like, none of these teams were like getting like really challenged by, you know, like none of these teams were really challenging Top and JDG. Like, it was a pretty clear standout. I do put Suning in the LPL teams for a pretty specific reason. I think SOFM is a freak show. Like, I've actually always been a really huge SOFM fan. I remember when he was playing in wildcard regions and he would just take Ignite as his second and summon a spell so he could kill you even quicker, and he would like farm side lanes and stuff. When he first came to the LPL, he had a bunch of crazy picks as well. So I just think that from what I've seen of junglers so far, there is a chance that SOFM just bodies everyone that he plays against and genuinely solo carries games, because it is a very carry-centric jungle meta right now.
Yeah, and the other thing we've learned is, at least from what we've seen so far, like junglers have been wildly inconsistent here in Playins. Like,
but the junglers in groups, I think, are much better than the junglers that we've seen in Play-ins right now. And obviously, there's like some good junglers that I've stuck out in Play-ins, but you have to think like, well, SOFM would absolutely style in this competition, but is he going to be able to do that against? It feels like all the better. Like, let's just think about Europe's other 3 junglers they have. They have Jankos, Self-Made, and Inspired. And like, I'll give them Jankos.
Yeah, I was gonna say Jankos has been hot trash on the carries, right? Like, he is not.
That's just a freebie. That's like the buy one get one free. But what in North America has Spica and what's his face?
Santorin.
Yeah.
Santorin. Yeah. But like, to be honest, that like, they're not the weakest people on their team. Speaker had a really good playoff run. Like, giving credit where credit's due for a rookie, like, he absolutely popped off. Santorin also is like a pretty good carry jungler, and I think that out of everyone, like, FlyQuest plays a pace appropriate game style. However, the game has slowed down, which is why Team Liquid looks a lot better. So like, yeah, I do agree with you. Like, it's not going to be feeding him junglers the same way. If he came through play-ins, he would just literally be doming them. But in saying that, like, I look at people like Pioshik, and I think, you know, SFM's a better jungler than him.
Canyon?
I do think, 100%. So that, like, I do think that jungle isn't the strongest. Like, I always say this. I think jungle in general, top lane and jungle, pretty crappy role. If you have a good top laner or a good jungler, odds are you're going to be a good team in your region, because the roles lack depth. There's no other way I can say it. In modern League of Legends, we have fantastic supports, fantastic AD carries, and insane mid laners. Some of the mid laners are just like poetry in motion. But we have a lack of great junglers, and we have a lack of great top laners, which is why for so long, I think the Chinese teams have stood out, because they've had both of those things. Like, at least, if not great, at least like pop-off junglers, right?
It actually just makes me excited about Damwon when you talk about top laners, at least. Nuguri, I'm excited to see Nuguri again. Canyon's solid too. I don't know though. Like, I feel like we were talking about this earlier, and so before we talk about like the upcoming best of 5 between LGD and Rainbow 7.
Yeah, not tuning into that one, Drakos. Yeah, no.
Someone's casting it. It might be us, Froskurinn. We'll find out. I do want to hit on like what if we actually learned that we can like take to groups with us, right? Because like if we can't learn anything about the LPL from LGD, which it seems like that we can't, and I would hope that we can't learn anything about the LEC from Mad Lions, but I'm a little worried that we can. Then like,
hang on a second. A moment from our sponsors. Chat.
We have sponsors.
If you want to unlock this primo content right now,
What the fuck?
during September, then I need right now to smash that subscribe button on I'm Frosk, because we're about to, like, this is our job. We're giving this shit away from free on this platform. True. So if you got anything, you know, just lying around, great job, Fenrir, Willow, like a couple of other primers must be in the chat. This is where it costs you something. I need at least a couple more people to, good job, Sidetracks. Like a couple more to come through. Otherwise, this isn't going any further. All right, choo-choo, motherfuckers. Okay, so what have we actually learned? Carry junglers are insane at the moment. Like, anyone that plays utility jungle, gonna lose the game. And I also think that the game is being played at a slower pace. Now, I'm not willing to jump on that bandwagon and say, that is going to carry over to the group stage. But slower paced, more deliberate League of Legends, if you will call it that, is looking much more successful in the play-in stage.
But I don't know. Okay, so we can get into this like theory discussion, because I actually think this is really interesting. I don't disagree with you that the games feel really slow right now. And so if you have a scaling composition as LJL...
You better not disagree with me. I just got you like $30 worth of subscribers, dude.
As LJL's drafting coach discovered, you can just get outscaled. But I think that's because, again, the discrepancy between the teams and some of the macro and map decisions have not been that solid that naturally the games are getting stalled out. Whereas if you actually look at like what's happening in the team fights, and I said this I think on episode 1 and I'll say it again, it feels like whoever opens up first like just gets fucking clocked in the head with an arrow or a bard ultimate, automatically wins the team fight, which is also why I think Nidalee is super OP, because those spears, like, you just chunk someone out instantly. It's like Zoe Bubble. You hit the right spear at the right time and suddenly that team fight is over, and it just happens so quickly, even though theoretically with longer games you'd think that, you know, something that scales a bit better would do better, but for whatever reason we seem to these teams can't really play team fights slow. Team fights are very fast, games are very slow. Map decision, very inconsistent.
And I can't remember who I was listening to talk about this. It was K-Drill are amazing, but they've just blended into one because it's currently 2 a.m. in Australia. But someone was saying
German,
like,
one's English.
yeah, the same. Both live on that English continent that's not divided by a strait at all. Shut up. So like, what they were saying, right, is that if you have good enough vision when an objective is being started, and you're behind, your decision should be to split away from the objective and to be able to trade like a dragon for a gold objective.
Literally
like, chat,
anything.
This is just how League of Legends works, right? Deny some creeps, take some jungle camps, do something that isn't where the other team is, because you're probably going to get smashed. And by the way, Scythen is an absolute monster
let's
in the chat right now.
We just hit tier 5 sub hype train for anyone watching the chat.
But what I'll say is like, trading away from the objective is a really important skill, but it requires vision. And I just feel like vision's been a little bit lacking at the moment in the tournament for us. What probably lends to your point about, you know, if you open up, you'll lose because your vision's not all that great. And trading has been at an all-time low. Like the stock market of League of Legends is just
everyone
dead at this point.
Especially this group, everyone will flip on Herald in this group. And I also think that in this group in particular that we watched today, the supports aren't roaming that much. I think we saw Mark finally unlocked from lane, but like Unicorns of Love don't really move Santis around. He usually just kind of sits into the lane. And when you're used to watching, especially like LEC fans, are you know, 3 teams where you have like Kaiser and Hilly and Mickey. It's always like unlocking support, blitzing towards mid lane and playing 3 there. And that's actually what LGD used to do, especially in like Playins. It was about unlocking Mark, using Peanut and then Shie, and then kind of blitzing towards mid and then moving Shie around, or kind of like moving whatever they were going to do around. But now everyone's just kind of chilling in the lane and just like hanging out and sitting there, and naturally that's going to make people's vision game pretty piss poor when then the jungler needs to pick up the slack, and we've just had junglers all over the board right now.
Yeah, I think we saw Mark try and do it today. He like recalled level 3, went back top lane, and people were getting excited in the Discord. They were like, this is it. This is where he doesn't go back bottom lane until like Kramer's level 6 and he's level 3 still somehow. But they somehow make it work, right? They get these advantages. But I do agree. It's just been few and far between. Also, like, you got to have a look at little things. Like, you know, a couple of a team PSG aren't playing with their jungle support duo. So they're probably not roaming as much. Although I think Kaiwing's probably been one of the better supports.
Kaiwing is so good.
Yeah, he has been laning a lot. So I just think, like, you know, you never really know. And like, one thing I will say is that I question how much LGD has sat down and gone, Rainbow Seven from the Latin America region, what's their best champions and what should we be pick banning against them? And what's the tendency of this team to be able to leave the laning phase? And I think they'll just be playing bog standard League of Legends, right? And maybe they just disrespected them a little bit. And odds are Rainbow Seven probably get like 4 of their 5 best champions against LGD. And that's why the game looks harder than what it should.
So when I look at this overall, it's just like, to me, the overall quality level for League of Legends, especially in this group, because it's so hectic, it's like really hard to read. And obviously we saw some cleaner games in the other group, and we're going to hopefully see some more tomorrow. Like Liquid obviously played a very clean game. Supermassive also played some very clean games. So like we did see, I think, better vision control, but it does feel like
Legacy played a clean game. They were just on the other side of the cleaning.
Because like before
Legacy were involved in a murder. You're right. They were murdered. Congratulations.
Before you finish your statement, Drakos, like I don't disagree with you that Group B seems to be the overall, like, because you have Supermassive, TL, they look really good in Group A, and then in Group B you kind of like have Unicorns of Love and PSG. But I will say that Rainbow Seven, I can't get a really good read on this team or like their actual strength, because I feel like they had like some really poor games, and then they just had like that one just like that beautiful game, and then another one that was like okay. And so going into a best of 5, I'm like, okay, I guess if these guys like get their best champions, like Spawn is saying, and that's bound to happen, like they can take a run for LGD. But I'm just like really concerned that they have to do it at least 3 times when they've looked pretty like very stark difference. Although in the PSG game, like their first one, they were still trying to force really aggressive plays that I didn't necessarily disagree with, but I think the execution on them was kind of like waffled. And if they did execute when they did those plays, maybe they actually smashed PSG instead of being snowballed the other direction. But because they got skill checked when they went for things like the dive on the Bard, and then like Echo picks up the kill, and then he picks up the wave, and then suddenly everything's out of control. Like maybe there's a different world where if that did go well, people are super high on Rainbow Seven. But unfortunately, I just don't have enough tape at this tournament to like really determine and like get behind the hype. I'm still like, I've seen like the highs, but I've also seen some really bad lows.
Yeah, I agree. I actually think their mid laner's been pretty solid. I think the UOL game though is like it's difficult to know what to take from that. Like obviously Jose Dioto had a really solid game, and that felt like it bled out, and like other people definitely stepped up around him. But we saw Ase getting like huge CS leads top lane against Boss, and like I don't know shit about that top lane matchup. I am not a good top laner. And maybe it is just that one-sided, but that really caught me off guard because Boss is usually fucking rock, right? He rarely loses lane. So is that Boss having an off day? Is that Ase being that good? And then if that is Ase being that good, like why was he so kind of underwhelming in the rest of the games? And similarly, as great as this Evelyn game looked for Jose Dioto, he also had that Nidalee game where he had like a 20 CS lead, but he also had like in like a 35-40 minute game 10k damage dealt to champions because he could not hit a fucking spear to save his life. So the team to me is just all over the place.
If R7 just play like a really stock standard 5v5 composition, like something just really excels into rocking up to objectives, I think that they could win it. But they'd have to do it like every single time. Like I want like an Orianna every single time. Give me the Orns, give me the meaty boys up into the top lane. Give me the Ashes, shit like this. And then like let their star jungler like do whatever the fuck he wants. I don't know. He can play anything he wants. But like I think if you just prepare yourself to 5v5 because LGD are god awful at it right now, I think that's how Rainbow Seven win. And you just like slowly walk into that team, smash them in much more coordinated 5v5s from Rainbow Seven, and then just like yeehaw your way to groups.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. It's like you were saying, I think it's really hard to know exactly what to concretely expect from this team. They have been kind of all over the place.
They're terrible.
What? I mean, is it...
Okay, go Spawn. You have the floor.
Yeah, go Spawn. You go to the floor. Because you're also simultaneously typing in Jose Dioto as like a god in chat. So why don't you give us your nuanced opinion where he's simultaneously a god, but also this team is horrible?
Because like, I'm a really great analyst, but that doesn't make this show any good. Like there's only so much one man can do. By old man used to have a saying, Drakos, and it's if you put a cat in the oven, it doesn't make it a biscuit. What does that mean? I have no fucking idea.
In Australia?
You can't make things into other things.
I have a really good story after this.
Okay. We didn't come here to fuck spiders, Spawn,
we didn't come here to put shoes on a caterpillar.
Correct. But I like that game was just UOL with a complete misread in multiple areas.
Yeah.
Like Cassiopeia, mid-range champion, into an Ezreal, into a hard rush comp. Cassio historically deals very poorly with flankers. There's an Evelyn running around, right? They got smashed in bottom lane, which hasn't happened since. Like that was just a perfect storm.
Draft.
Yeah, correct. And it was the perfect storm, right? And Boss got counterpick in a red side draft, and then he flubbed it in a Wukong versus Camille matchup, which to my understanding is very Wukong favored. So like he just flubbed the game. So like off the back end of that, that's like their only impressive win. If you can tell me another impressive moment that this team has had that isn't the other team literally gifting them victories on a silver platter, games that you and I would nearly win, Daniel.
But here's the thing.
Are you implying that we could beat LGD, Spawn? Is that what you're saying? Are you saying our Flex 5 stack could beat LGD?
I don't...
Nearly. Like, the Sundance Kid and whatever the fuck you're called could come out and we could nearly pick up a dub. That's what I'm saying.
I don't disagree with Spawn. I think Rainbow Seven are a good enough team that when teams make mistakes into them, they can punish really hard. And that has been what majority of like their good moments have looked like. It's when someone just like ints it into them, Rainbow Seven just like smack that shit out of their hands. Now, my story time. Drakos, I don't know if you've heard this story. Chat, buckle the fuck up.
Fuck.
So
It's good that I haven't, because if I haven't heard it, it's not a story about me, so thank God.
it makes me think of an oven. So oven triggered in my mind. I was like, man, the Australian summers were fucking unbearable. I need to tell you the story. Jake left for, I think, a weekend, and then Rusty also left. And I used to be roommates with this man over here next to me and Jake, and he left this giant rabbit. His giant rabbit's name was Ted, and I don't know if you know this, but rabbits can die in the summer heat. And this rabbit was like their child at the time. They had it forever. He was the star of the family. And Spawn looks at me, he's like, Frosk, I need you to take care of Ted over the weekend. I was like, no problem, fucking bunny, I can deal with this. It was so hot that weekend. It was like 50 degrees out in Celsius. That it was a scorcher, if you will. And I had to bring the bunny inside. We didn't have aircon because we're in Australia. Australian houses don't have that. And this bunny, I put him in the laundry room, and it's all dark because it's like the safest room in the house. I was so terrified the rabbit was gonna get heat stroke. I was having ice cubes, and I was like putting the ice cube like on the bunny's head. It was just completely flat to the floor. I was like, oh no, Jake and Jen are gonna come back, and I will have murdered their child. I actually took the bunny. He doesn't know this. I took the bunny to the riot office, and I had him hop around because it was actually air-conned in there, but I had to chase him for 45 minutes, and he may have chewed through at least 3 different cords.
So in this example, is Peanut the rabbit? Who's the rabbit? That's what I'm trying to understand. Who are we putting in the oven to try to make biscuits? You know, that's what
I was put in the oven. I was so stressed.
No, so in this example, Frosk is Jose Diodo, and Rainbow 7 is
And
the
Rainbow
rabbit.
7 is the
Rainbow
rabbit.
7 is the rabbit.
And taking it to the right office is building a 5v5 composition and out team fighting LGD for the victory. That's how
I
you
was
win.
gonna say taking it to the right office is playing Evelyn, right? Because the Nidalee not doing it. That's the ice cube on the head, right? You're like, it looks nice for a little while, but if you look at it objectively, nothing's happening. You like gotta sneak it into that aircon.
To be fair, and the other thing that I do want to say about this Rainbow 7 lineup is like they're not supposed to be like the international superstar squad, right? Like this is a rebuild year for Latin America, much in the same way that any wins that Legacy get are good wins. Any wins that this Rainbow 7 lineup got are good wins. Like I'm really impressed with them so far. I think the fact that they've got a great player in Jose Diodo, their mid laner alone has had a pop-off moment. Shadow has looked better than he did on the first day, which is good. Like I think that, you know, not everyone's at Worlds to win Worlds. Like fans need to get on board with this concept. If you are a Latin American fan and you watch that game where your region smacks down the LCL, one of the strongest wildcard regions at Worlds, and has a pop-off performance, you go sub to their channels and this one at the same time. Follow SpawnLol on Twitter and send Alone a really nice message about how he had a great mid lane Lucian game. That's all I'm saying.
And a good Orianna game versus LGD, actually. He had clean-ass movement. He dodged a bunch of recon knockups. In the words of 2019 G2, better movement wins games. Or peanut throwing, in the words of me in 2020. LGD being a shithouse also wins games. Yeah, I think you make an excellent point. And while we're talking about it, also subscribe to the YouTube channel as long as you're here. And thanks again, chat, for the, I believe, 25 sub hype train. That was fucking sick. Frost is going to get mad pizza. I don't know. You get mad whatever from that. So.
I'm supposed to have friends over tonight to order pizza. Josie's like, oh, we can invite this person and this person. I actively was like, no, I don't want to invite those people.
See, this is where you know that Frosk has lived with me before, because that is a very Spawn line. Jenna will be like, oh, that's great. We're going out for dinner with this person. It'll be really fun. And I'll be like, but I don't like that person. Part of that is fun.
I was even meaner. I was like, I don't want a lot of people here. And she's like, do you want to invite like Daniel and Connie? I was like, no, I like Daniel and Connie, but I don't want them over my house right now.
Yeah, that's fucking fair. I feel you guys. Like sometimes you're just like, yeah, I would rather not.
Hang on a second, chat. If I lived anywhere near Connie would get invited everywhere.
Yes, yeah. If I wasn't ordering pizza and it was like a bring
Connie,
like potluck
Connie is
situation.
The Jose Diodo of friends that you can invite
Correct.
over to your house.
She's the cat in the oven.
No.
But you open it, she actually comes out of biscuits.
She can make it into a biscuit. If anyone can do it, it's anyway. I I digress. What were we talking about? League of Legends? Terrible game.
Right.
Anyway, as you can tell, we've been in Playins for 3 days. Like, these days have been pretty long, and I'm not gonna lie. As you saw from today, the games have been super, super wild. So I'm frankly looking forward to best of fives. I feel like it's a lot easier for me to be excited and really invested when there's really clear stakes, as opposed to these best of ones where it's like,
Oh, I can pull up the
how
standings.
many of these games actually mattered?
There you go,
Because
chat.
we auto qualified one team and we eliminated one team, but it's not like usually when we're finishing groups, we're like eliminating 3 teams or 2 teams in every single group. So
We do have to talk about now, because we talked a lot about like Rainbow Seven and LGD. We do need to talk about like PSG Talon and Unicorns of Love. The fact that PSG Talon are going to go into groups now, and then we'll get their roster back in River and Tank. And I think there was actually a really good discussion on Twitter. I can't remember who said it. One of the LMS experts that I follow, and was basically like, it's going to be really sad when River and Tank come back and then PSG just get like smacked down in group stage because they're also against harder competition. And then River and Tank will have to bear the brunt of that criticism. And it will be a really,
causation.
yeah, a really reductive conversation. So, just
Hey, and can I just say, my boy Tank, he's a gamer. Old Snake Tank. If he gets Xerath into the Azir matchup, he's a gamer. He has one of the cleanest Xeraths I have ever seen. Frost, back me up. How good was Tank Xerath? It was a very good Xerath.
you know what? Tank's a really nice guy. You know, when I look at Tank, you know, I look at him, I look at his League of Legends gameplay. You know, I think a lot of things, and then you know what I think to myself after I think all those other things?
You're
I
just
think,
like,
wow, Tank's
Kai,
a really nice
Kai
guy.
Wing, phenomenal bard, constantly engaging, clutch player. You're like unified, a stand-up 80 carry, amazing champion pool. It's great. Tank, really nice guy.
So
Great
nice.
smile.
Opened the door for me on 2
I will
separate
say,
occasions.
I will say that 99% of my information about Tank is from him playing on Snake in 2015. So it might have been a Xerath that had a different ultimate, but he was a really good Xerath
to ever live.
Was
Literally.
this back when like his W used to extend the range of his abilities? Is that how old the Xerath was?
Pretty much.
Oh my god, I barely remember the old Xerath kit. Good times. Yeah, so anyway, so PSG making it through. I don't know. I feel like we looked at this team today, Froskurinn, and I'm gonna read it because what did you say? You described it so perfectly.
I think if you pull up the chat, I'm going to assume I said it seems like
flamed.
PSG either skill check you or they lose the game.
That's right. That's what you said. Yeah.
And what I mean
PSG
by that,
try to skill check, and if they can't, they lose. There it is.
but they were really good at it. Like Uniboy was really clean. I think his set in particular was like, he's so good. They snowballed obviously really well, but when they faced teams that were kind of on even footing for them, that's when you saw, I think, PSG really exposed for some of the lacking coordination as well as just like general fundamentals of like team play. Whereas when they were just smacking on kids, it's because either you had situations like Rainbow Seven where they overdove into them and then they just punished them because they out executed, and then they snowballed quite effectively from there. So that's my thing with PSG. It's like when they're better players, they show up, and they have some good players.
So the thing is, from my perspective, is that they are playing the game like a pickup team. And I actually saw a comment from Big Fafa, who's their coach, that said, you know, thank you for joining in on the kind of cartoonish storyline that we have at the moment. But we have had to completely change our play style to be more of a pickup team. They've gone away from the scaling mid laners. Like, let's be realistic. Like, put the memes aside for a second. If Azir is up, Tank is going to play Azir, and he's going to play Azir into Orianna most games, and he's going to be happy doing it. And he's just going to handshake the scaling matchup. Yeah, it's going to be very slow, and he's going to try and team fight. And River is going to support that style by protecting him, and they're not going to translate leads around the map. And this is why Hanabi has actually had to cheat a lot of recalls, and his CS is so low, because they actually just move around the map to fight 5v5 team fights when they have their roster. So we're actually going to see a very different PSG play, in my opinion. Now, on the flip side, because have we hit enough on PSG? Because I think, like, you know, they've got some great players, but I think, you know, going into groups is going to be tough for them. The other team was Unicorns of Love, right? That you wanted to talk about, Drakos.
Yeah.
And this team, to be honest, surprised me. And people are going to be so shocked. But you have to go back to last year at Worlds, where the LCL lost 2 games versus Oceania. And I'm the Oceania representative. And even I am saying that's a slight. You drop double games, you only play 2 of them. They got to play a third, and they picked that victory up. But they lost both their games versus Mammoth. So I wasn't necessarily all that hot on them. From my experience of watching this Unicorns of Love lineup, what I see is really clever drafting gets them an early game advantage. Then they make a mistake in the mid game, and it always comes down to 5v5 team fighting. Always comes down to 5v5 team fighting, no matter how big their advantage was. And the thing is that they were better 5v5 team fighters in their final, and therefore they won their games. But if that is your style of playing the game on an international stage, that is a huge risk. And that's why I thought that the TCL's representative in Supermassive was actually the better emerging region team this time around, because I believe they are the two teams in the race for that. And I haven't seen anything so far at this Worlds that shows me that they are going to change any of that. I don't think this is a clean team. I think they're a little bit dirty. They're a little bit unorthodox, and they love to scrap. And that's just a really risky way to play the game of League of Legends.
I don't disagree with that, but I will say this. When a team is scrappy like this, and we've seen this with, LPL historically, with G2 very recently, like you don't get to like pause and like time out. Like when a team is trying to fight you, you don't get to disengage from that, which is why when scrappy teams fight even really controlled teams, you often will see scrap. And what happens is either the scrappy teams int in and then basically get snowballed on, and then they just get like hard swept, or they completely smash you. There's no in between, or like very close back and forth. And I think that's true of kind of all of the teams that I just like pointed out there, especially like Unicorns of Love. The issue is, and where I really agree with Spawn, is the danger of doing this against international competition, when chances are you will not be able to get away with the skirmishes. Because again, and I said this with Cajal yesterday, UOL were never punished in their region when they decided to do these things like flip on Herald or flip on Dragon. They would always get to rock up and then take the fights and then win the fights. And so they go back, home from scrims like, you know what? This was great. Like that was a perfect Herald. Like we did everything, and they just keep doing it.
In the final, it looked like the other team was waiting for them to show up. I remember a specific team fight where they probably had like 15 seconds head start, and then they pulled off the Herald when there was only like 2 of the Unicorns members like mulling around in River. And I was like, you know what? We could take the Herald, but that would be rude. We should wait for the rest of the guests to arrive, and then we'll just have the gentleman 5v5 handshake agreement. So, I think they're really good team fighters. Like, don't get me wrong. I actually,
really
I went on record. I think
players.
Ananasik is like up there for probably. Is he? Let me think before I say this.
The best jungler in Playins? Is that what you were about to say?
No, I was going to say, like, is he the best emerging regions player that I've seen play?
I mean, there's an
Are you
argument to be made there.
counting like the PSG roster?
No, because they're LMS in my head, right? So even though they're called like PCS now, it's just LMS. Like they get a team straight through to groups. Like Armut is very good as well. I agree. But like he's in the conversation, right? Like if I was going to create a top 5 player list, like Ananasik is now in there. So like I think that's impressive.
Yeah, I think it is. And I think when you talk about that style, right, like obviously at Worlds is really going to suck, specifically when you have to play a best of 5, right? Which is why I felt like this PSG loss is so crushing, because they could have skated into groups without winning a best of 5, right? And that's fucking huge, because this style just feels like it gets significantly worse in best of 5. And we've also seen that, like, as creative and crazy as their drafting can be, in this most recent, in the final game was also bit them in the ass. Like, I don't know if they were trying to be cheeky, if there was like a Senna Wukong, like the Mad Lions thing going on there when they like really early picked that champion. I don't know what exactly their strategy was there, but like at the end of the day, this like didn't really pan out for them. And on top of that, if they had gone through to groups, like this strategy for me for an emerging region and best of ones is fine. Like if you want to be the best emerging region, it's not great. But if you want to get wins on the board, if you want to just make it out of groups, this is fine. I mean, this could have been so much more if they just won that game versus PSG.
We say this, but this is also under the lens and like the context of like just watching them at this Worlds, when we need to remember that it's the same roster last year. They went into the best of 5 versus Splice, I believe, and they actually did not do bad in that best of 5. Like they almost made groups then. So I also think the assumption that there would only be empowered by best of 1 and they can't play any sort of macro game because I think they're better than they were last year is a little bit dangerous. Just because, when we did see them last in a best of 5 internationally, especially against a slower paced team, they were doing, perfectly fine. And now they're better.
Yeah, I do agree. Like, I don't think like I'm kind of between where you and Drakos are at, I feel like. So like the way I think they're gonna treat the best of fives is they're gonna treat them as 5 back-to-back best of ones, where they're just gonna throw like 3 curveball drafts out there. Like they're probably gonna play some Ziggs, they're gonna play some Oriana, maybe some Heimerdinger, Karthus, and things like that will drop in. I think I also agree with Frost that they will probably try and slow a game down and try and take someone late and play them as a team fighter. But the issue that I have is I just don't see it working. And like, call me a cynic, maybe. Like, I think they're the one of 2 top playing regions team. I think them and Supermassive. Like, if you put UOL versus Oceania, Latin America, Japan, Brazil, or
You're saying out of the
I think they're the
emerging
only ones.
regions,
Yeah,
if you
out
will,
of the
it's-
emerging regions, like they would beat all of them handily in a best of 5, I think. But I just think that now they're going to have to play Team Liquid or Mad or Supermassive on the other end, and that to me is where it gets tough.
I think right now, I'd love to see Supermassive and Unicorns in a best of 5. I personally feel like Supermassive have a better, like, cleaner fundamentals in terms of like their objective setup. Like, we've talked about this being like UOL's big weakness, but obviously I don't think that UOL are outclassed individually in like player strength by Supermassive. I would love to see a best of 5 between those 2 regions.
I would too, because it feels like we could definitively learn something anytime we see the 2 sole representatives or the 2 top representatives of any region. We're going to have to wait for groups, obviously, or bracket stage rather for that. Like, we can actually make a definitive statement, at least for the year, about like who is stronger between those 2 teams, and it always feels like indicative of the region as well. Downside is it's like not super likely that these guys are going to play each other, because UOL gets the bye in the first round, and then they have to play the winner of 3-4, right? And short of Supermassive really free falling, it feels like Supermassive should be 1 or 2. Like, it definitely.
Well, what could
possible.
happen is that Mad could come out, correct me if I'm wrong, and win both of their games.
They have 1 game.
Like, do they only have 1 game? Did they already lose to Supermassive?
Yeah, they did.
Mad, what are you doing? Oh, wow, they only have Legacy. Okay, so they need some crazy 3-way tie situation, and even then they get seeded up. So yeah, it's just not going to happen.
But remember that any time there's a tie, head-to-head head-to-head record isn't used for tiebreakers. It's just used.
The only time head-to-head is used for tiebreaker is if you have a 3-way tie and someone holds a 2-0 record, 1-0 record versus both, and therefore they automatically go up. So yes, you were correct, but at the same time, you're probably also correct, in which case, Supermassive isn't playing Unicorns of Love, I feel like, in that scenario. However, guys, it is time for the brief intermission. We've been going for like 40 minutes at this point.
Discord?
I did.
Chat is saying it's too low.
I'm already on it. I'm like the greatest producer ever.
So brief intermission chat. We've been here. We've been enjoying like 40 minutes of quality content. And this is a time that I need you to just, dip in your pocket, go a little bit further. I saw some tier 1s, maybe some tier 2s could be flying around in here. That's all I'm saying. I haven't seen a hype chain in a little while. Like, I'm checking my Twitter. The numbers aren't going up as quickly as they were the other night. Drakos, how many YouTube subscribers have you got?
Oh, not a lot. We're at 2K, guys. It's pretty low. There are 2,750 people. I have less subscribers on YouTube than there are viewers currently in this room. So if you want to go over and subscribe on YouTube,
guys,
there we go.
If you throw down some subs, I'll say nice things about North America.
People,
come on.
so to be fair, I've been reading the YouTube comments, and people take it really personally if we don't praise North America. Like, they want a constant stream of praise. If we say something nice in passing, it's not enough.
I'll give you a full segment of North America. Okay, we're getting a little bit
Spawn's
closer.
Nipples are out. All right, so
yeah, it's Spawn.
TOS, please. Terms of service. Hello, Twitch. No Bannerino. Ooh, what we mean to say is Spawn just gave you that show, chat. So bring it, bust it out.
What is it?
That's a Team Liquid. All right, Spawn. Let's give you the opportunity. We'll set up tomorrow. Tomorrow we have 4 games and any potential tiebreakers, but the day will be kicking off at this point with Supermassive versus
with our
Team Liquid.
Featured matchup, you might say. With
our featured matchup, Supermassive versus TL, aka potentially the best game in all of Playins. So, Jake Spawn Tiberi, as the resident Liquid fanboy, why don't you give us your every year we have a speech, right? Like Yamato gave a speech once, like Flowers has done a speech. We've done the segments before on broadcast. But Spawn, how about you give us your you've been a coach, give us your victorious coach speech for TL before they head into battle tomorrow to try to win first seed.
Unfortunately, Drakos, like I have been a coach, but I've never been the victorious coach. So I kind of suck at these features.
He always
Not-
takes second
but if you were
place.
good at it, it would also good or bad. It's hilarious. So just let's go, Spoonie. Let's go. What do you got for me?
No, so like with TL, like I'm just telling them that they're like, honestly, if I'm Jat, it's just like trust the process, stick to the system, because I know Jat is very much like me in the way he thinks about League of Legends, and that is when you come out of base, you declare the objective you're playing for, and then there is a set way you set up for that objective, and then you do that thing, and you either win or lose the fight, and either way, it doesn't change the outcome because there is the next objective. And what I mean by that is that if you're coming out of base and dragon's up and you're stronger, it's like, okay, we're setting up around the dragon. This is how we're going to set up around dragon. We need top lane push, rotate down river because there's 90 seconds, blah, 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 blah. Or on the flip side, it's like, hey, we're not strong enough to fight the dragon. So we're going to cheat one wave of mid prior with like 4 people. Then we're going to take their top quadrant control and hope on their next reset, we're going to get a pick and like a turret or something like that, right? And so I feel like that's exactly how Team Liquid play the game. I don't know about you guys, chat, but I look at Team Liquid and I think there is a formula behind this, and they're catching people off guard with how disciplined they are now playing. And sometimes that's what a veteran team needs. They actually need the challenge of like, and I think that's why they performed so well when Tactical came on the lineup, because it's like the challenge of carrying a rookie through in the regular season. The challenge of the world stage is obviously what Impact needs, because time and time again, this guy steps up when he gets to world. So it's like, okay, the challenge is now here. Now go out there and perform and do the things that we've worked on all the time in scrims. That's what I'm saying to my teams. And then if they don't do it, I'm getting out the belt.
I would pay money to see Jack get the belt out. That would be a sight. That's
What would
all
you
I'm
do
saying.
if like a coach was literally on stage and like as like a champ select happens and it just takes a 180 turn, you just start to see the coach like pulling the belt off?
Can you imagine?
Flip it out?
Just imagine this is a caster, right? Imagine production is in your ear.
You'd be
They're
like,
like, we're
I
cutting away. Do not talk about the belt. Do not talk about the belt. And I'm like,
What is that?
so anyway, yeah, we have a brief pause for, let's check the list, peripheral issues.
And hey, can I just talk about one thing in chat real quickly? Because people are like, hey, Team Liquid won like 2 games in playoffs, in play-ins. Why are we getting excited about them? It's like, okay, so A, you have to actually watch the game with eyeballs. Yeah, so it's how they won. So like, A, use your eyes, chat, come on. Like, if you've subscribed to Froskurinn, you're clearly better than this, chat. I don't want to have to bring you down and beat you, but like, you're clearly better than this. And the other thing is, they were the regular season victors of the LCS. And whilst I do think that the LCS is definitively the 4th best region in the world, I do think that there is a gulf between the LCS and everyone else that exists in League of Legends, like underneath that 4th seed. So like, I don't think there's any shame in saying like, if TL could be the best North American team at the moment, they could be. I'm not saying they are. I haven't seen Team TSM play, but they could be. I have no shame in saying they are a good team. Now, if you start telling me they're going to win Worlds, I'm going to call you crazy. But like, this is a good, solid League of Legends team. They could make a quarterfinal. They could make a semifinal. Like, stranger shit has happened. I watched H2K play Albus Nox Luna in a quarterfinal once upon a time.
I saw TSM take a game off of Samsung White.
You know what's so fucking funny about that year is that like even Europe is like, okay, I don't know if we want to bring that one up. Like we're always like bringing up our international successes. We're like World Finals, Misfits, almost beating SKT. People are like, what about that semifinal H2K got? We're like, because we all know that like we just drew Albus Nox Luna and that's like, and then immediately got 3-0 in semis. So it's like,
I will say this though, because I promised that I would say some nice things about Team Liquid, so I'm going to say some nice things about Team Liquid. Just following up on Spawn, their fundamentals are really cleaned. I like the idea that they're a very well coached team, a very well disciplined team. You can see the experience in everything that they're doing. As he's saying, like from reset, they know exactly what they're doing. They set up for it well. Core JJ sounded beautiful in comms. His performance amazing. What has really impressed me is all of Team Liquid's members, not a single member is having a bad tournament right now. In like the small sample size that we have, these guys are popping the fuck off mechanically. Jensen caught Tally on the edge of the shockwave. I think 3 times, at least 2 different times. Like, that was some mid-lane kingdom. Impact was smacking on kids. And I know Cagel called him a Mord one trick yesterday. I tried to defend my boy Impact. I think his Shin is really good. He can play the Ornn. He's got the Mordekaiser. I don't think you can ban him out. I think the only way you really attack that team is actually by banning out Brox's champion pool, because I think his effective champion pool is a bit limited right now. But, like, oh, sorry, I just got, like, a random ding. But, like, right now, Team Liquid are not going to be punished by any of the teams in this group, maybe except for Supermassive. Like, that's where I'm like, Supermassive or TL, who's the better team? I want to say that it's TL, but Supermassive has also looked super impressive, and I think that their jungler,
Yeah, and the other thing, chat, is when you say they've only won 2 games, it's like, well, they only played 2 games, you freaking morons. So how many games do you want them to win? 4? Like...
I don't know what that random
What is
was.
a reasonable enough number to be excited? Because I was pretty excited to watch ALG crash and
I
burn
think
after 2 losses. That's all it took.
I think you get really excited for TL if they just absolutely blast Supermassive.
Yeah.
I think if they
don't lose a game in play-ins, then you can hype them for groups.
But it's also like best of 1, so it's like the double-edged sword where you want to give like the benefit of the doubt that in a best of 1, like whatever. But it kind of like depends on how they lose. If they lose, like, I don't know. If they get like snowballed on and it's just like a clusterfuck of like the game ends at 8 minutes because, I don't know, something like went wrong in draft, which I actually disagree with. I think TL have a really good read on draft right now, especially for plans. Like, I don't ever see them making a huge drafting blunder, that they should be like pretty golden. But yeah, looking good.
I mean, overall, yeah, TL looks solid. As I said, Impact looks like, you know, husbando material. If we're honest, this man's out here taking names. What else can I say that's nice about TL?
You sound like it's really painful for you, Drakos.
No, I'm not. You guys
like, I really like,
so
you're
much.
reaching for it.
So I talked to Broxa to try to get him to leak-a-roo some strats to help me with my prep, and he said Papa Jat and TL have put a lockdown on that. He actually didn't say Jat. He just said, we decided we're not going to do that. And I was like, okay, respect, I get that. But talk to me about the mood. And he did talk a lot about how Team Liquid has taken a lot of steps to make their players happy in quarantine. They're doing daily team meetings. So it seems like while Mad Lions is kind of the team that we know to have this like really solid mental coaching, obviously they have 4 rookies compared to the 1 of tactical, but they're a team that like really suffered going to China, whereas it looks like TL, I don't want to say they've only gotten better because I think that that's unfair to the level of competition that they were playing in LCS playoffs, but they certainly haven't gotten worse. And for a lot of teams that clearly have Kof LGD, even though that's a 1-hour train ride, or Mad Lions, like that is an impressive feat. And Supermassive are a fucking good team, and beating them actually does mean something. Even if like if you wanted to shit on TL, the way that you would do it is like take away the credibility of the teams that they beat rather than, you know, trashing the way that they did it. So Supermassive's good. I'm ready to see if TL can take it.
In saying that, this is a winnable game for Supermassive. Like, as much as I'm building TL up because I do think they're a good team, I do think that Supermassive's top side of Summoner's Rift is really incredible. Kakao, Balulu, all really, really good players. So, and Snowflower actually really surprised me on the Leona. He had a great performance as well in hindsight. So I think that this is definitely the game to watch, and it's the first one. So stay up for it. Don't go to sleep. I think it's only about 16 hours away. So make sure that you're just pumping those Red Bulls or other energy drinks and staying up the whole time.
Just Red Bull. You're a Red Bull for your Red Bull Baron power plays, chat.
It's really hard to punish Impact. Like, don't get me wrong. Armu is really good, and I think it was you, Spawn, who said it on cooldown. You were basically like, this can define a world's meta, like how he is able to break certain matchups, or he did break matchups. But Impact's champion pool, I feel, is really hard to break because he has a lot of champions that even if they go down, and they are expected to lose matchups, you know, outside of like the Mordekaiser, but like more on his like traditional tanks, like he still has high impact, if you will, in team fights and what the rest of like TL are doing. So I don't think you try to break them there, and I really do feel like you just gave praise to Snowflower. We know that Core JJ and Tactical are also phenomenal, so I don't think you can really break bot lane. And there's not like a lot of matchups to like really sway that back and forth. I think you have to try to punish 2v2 mid jungle, and what you're trying to do is limit Jensen's impact on the map. So I think you need to target away the Twisted Fate, not let him roam around, like try to keep him locked down in lane and like survive. And you try to actually just like fight for mid lane priority and blitz into Brox's face, because Brox is still in the graves, even though he's picking up all those kills. Like, he wasn't power farming. He was just kind of making good on the fact that his solo laners were mechanically so much better than what Legacy was outputting and like cleaning up. And if he didn't force those ganks or kind of be the benefactor of what the soul laners were setting up for him, he would have actually fallen like pretty far behind in my opinion. So I think that would be the target of how Supermassive play out the game.
If I was a jungler on Team Liquid, I would play the game the exact same way that Broxah played that game. Wherever Jensen told me to go, I would be there. And when Jensen told me to press R to clean up a kill, I would say, yes, sir, Mr. Jensen, sir. And I would hit that R button. And so you can't everyone's like, but all he did was clean up like Jensen's kills. Like, yeah, great. So he was in the perfect position to be able to capitalize on a solo laner playing like out of his mind against a mid laner that has played top for 4 years. Like, what else? Like, once again, like this is where I just like, he did enough for me. Like, I also think that he has serious champion pool issues. Like, I do agree. Like, I think that, he can get beaten by Kakao because Kakao is a world-class player, and we've seen that across multiple regions now. But, like, when people use that game as, like, but he didn't do anything apart from, help Jensen out, it's like, yeah, that's kind of your job as a jungler, isn't it, guys? Like, what else are you supposed to do? If I had to choose between counter-jungling chickens or killing the mid laner that was delivered on a silver platter, I would probably go kill the mid laner as well.
But they don't like that he waited in a bush for 10 seconds to do it, Spawn. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to stand around.
Bad.
Broxah historically very selfless. I've always
also, I love Broxah. So before
we
go
are
any
big
further,
Broxah fans here.
My
friend of
analysis
show.
my analysis on Broxah might be completely skewed by the fact that I just think he is like the most wholesome person in esports. His Twitch chat is so adorable. He is so wholesome. I just love watching him. Like, honestly,
Brox is lovely.
I even think he's pretty handsome. Like, I'll go out there and put it on record. Like, I'm just a big Broxah fan.
Wait, that's it. That was your.
That was it.
All right. All I'll say is that like I think the interesting factors to me when we watch this game, and I wish we could watch a best of 5 between these two teams because I think it'd be really fascinating, is does TL blind pick for top? That's something that they did a lot in the past, and Impact was just literally a rock for this team. It was unmovable. They could blind pick for him. They could save counters. Or
if Ornn is up, yes.
Ornn, but he also did it with Mord. He also did it with Shen domestically, right? So like if they
I
do
think
that,
you have to ban
Ornn
Twisted Fate, Shen, and whatever else they want from them. If they want to ban,
I think Twisted Fate, Shen, Graves will be. I think Twisted Fate, Shen, Graves are like 3 best bans against this team, and if that's the case, the only thing you can blind pick is Ornn.
And no, chat, we don't mean the same thing when we say Tank is a nice guy and Brox is a nice guy, because Brox is a nice guy and he's pretty good at League of Legends. Tank is a nice guy. Won't say the second part, but you understand my drift. Anyway, Tank might be good. I don't know. I like Spawn, and most of my experience comes from Snake, and actually talking mostly to the two of you about Snake, so I shouldn't have as strong opinions as I do. Anyway, and so that's my big question is like, is Armar good enough to punish what I assume will be a blind pick from Impact? And then Bo Lulu, the only strength that I really would give him over Jensen is that like he plays a lot of different shit, like the Lulu mid, just as an example, right? And I think that he can play a lot of different styles for the team, and like is that something that they can leverage to give them an edge? I think Kakao on paper is advantaged in this matchup, but does that mean anything if Brox is on a comfort pick? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well done, Drakos.
Thanks. Anywho, Bo Lulu is trash. Yeah, okay, buddy. Okay, Popras BBB. Okay, speaking of chat and Popras BBB, chat, Playins Day 3, it's coming up. We got a few minutes left. Hit us with your questions. It is ridiculously cheap in channel points to highlight a message. It only costs 100 on Frost Chat because she's gangster like that. So highlight a message. Throw in a subscription while you're at it.
How likely is it for Playing Group to send 3 teams to group stage?
How likely?
Yeah, I mean, Group A could definitely do that. Like, if there is a world where Team Liquid, Supermassive, and Mad get through, am I shocked? No.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's super plausible, actually. It's hard for me to gauge because I'm a little bit biased against Group B because I just like...
Because we just watched them play.
Because we just watched them play, and it was so chaotic and it was so messy. And obviously there are redeeming factors in that kind of play, but it's not for me.
Everyone is asking if LGD is better than Unicorns of Love in a best of 5. I think in current form, URL the much scarier opponent. Maybe even in LGD's best form, URL is still the much scarier opponent.
I am a big fan of if you beat a team, you should be considered the favorite. Call me old-fashioned, and I picked this up from fighting, right? because like in fighting you talk about stylistic nightmares much more. Like it's less about like skill and it's more like stylistic nightmares. But
No
when
skill
you
in fighting,
beat
I hear you,
someone,
yes.
no, like because like
I'm
people in
just
fighting
kidding,
have
go.
much different skill sets, is what I'm trying to say, right? So like I think that if you've beaten someone, you should be considered the favorite until you lose to them. That's all I'm saying.
Even
I
in
mean,
best of
depends
one
on-
format.
Yep, even in a best of, if you come out and you convincingly like you show like across like a 35-minute game, like if it's just a 20-minute stomp that snowballed through laning phase, like I'm not all about that. But like I'm not saying heavy favorites, but you know, I think you like if in the past it was like 70-30, then it goes like 51-49. Like, but you're still the favorite. Like I would still say at this point they've earned enough from me to be considered like better.
That feels really content like the context of a fight is always going to matter though, right? Like, and I think that
What, like a bar fight with weapons?
No.
Sometimes
But,
you
like,
can
what
really
what
into
actually fucking
draft.
happens in the fight? Yeah, like because like Mad Lions 3-0 G2, I would still not predict Mad Lions more often than not as the favorites to beat G2.
But see, I would say
say
like, and that's what I said. I didn't say you should do it, Drakos. I'm just saying that's where I'm much more different from people. Like if you've beaten someone in recent memory, I will always do this. I will always give the team that won the benefit of the doubt.
I think that there's. Now, I don't want to say that there's more variables. I think there's more, let's say, immediately visible variables, like on paper objective variables when it's like a video game and not like hand-to-hand combat. So maybe that's why I feel reticent to do it, because I can see it in a fight, right? And obviously, like the other guy in a fight can always have excuses. His head was out of the game that day, like whatever, blah, 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 blah. But like, and the same stuff shows up in League, but like between draft,
you made all the excuses League players.
Maybe you're right. Maybe you're right. Like
No,
maybe
he's
you're
not
right.
right.
It
He's
feels
full of
different
shit
to me.
right
It feels
now.
different.
Listen, the game is not flexible as it once was in terms of like the different types of win conditions and opportunities that you can have to play out the map, to play out the game style. It's too formula because monster objectives are too powerful, which means that draft matters so much more than it used to matter. And I think when draft matters as much as it does, you can totally fuck a draft in a best of one. LJL watched their team do it repeatedly today.
Yeah, shout out to the elite pick, by the way. That was a fucking throwback.
Do you think that the LGD draft was significantly worse than the UOL draft?
I think there's a conversation about the theoretical perfect draft in a vacuum for like the premier way to play the game, and the theoretical perfect draft for a specific team to win. You know what I mean? Like the players that you're playing for.
I think Ezreal Bard is a super solid laner. It's been blind picked all throughout LCK playoffs and LPL playoffs.
Let me pull the draft.
I don't like
Which one
the
are you
style.
talking about? V3?
LGD versus UOL, right?
Oh, at UOL.
Yeah. I think like he took the Volibear pick into the Camille, so he obviously likes that. Lilia is considered strongest jungler on the pack, so they got stronger top side of the map. I don't like Sylas into Syndra. I would give that heavily favor to the Syndra matchup, therefore UOL win that lane. But bottom lane, I would say Ezreal Bard should win. So like in my head, they've got 4 out of 5 strongest champions.
But here's my thing, is that this draft, when you have a Lilia, a Ezreal, and a Bard, I feel like, and let's be honest, the frank purpose of like Xie and Longxing, Xie is there for cleanup duty and or hard engage potential if he gets the correct ultimate to do it, and Longxing is just going to become a massive meatball to create zone pressure. And this comp should be about playing team fights really slow, constantly using the poke and the disengage and re-engage of Lilia, Ezreal, and Bard. And then when like you see your moment, like your meatball comes in, maybe you have like the ult from the Sylas, or you get a big enough lead that you're able to play side lane, but that didn't pan out for them, even though they had a massive lead at one point in
that was
game.
6k up.
And I think the issue with LGD is that they can't play that style. They don't have the coordination to do it. They need to play super basic press R compositions. Everyone has their own agency. No one has to like coordinate what they're doing, which is why I think they work best when Peanut is on something like Kindred or Nidalee, where he can just be left to his own devices and like just do Peanut things, and he doesn't have a responsibility to the rest of his team. And I think if it's like every man for themselves LGD composition, I think that's their best case. Like, get me a LeBlanc in there, get me an Ezreal in there, get me the Nidalee, and everyone's just like bouncing around doing their own thing.
It's funny that you said it reminds me so much of Piosric when you describe it as get him, put him in a position where the team needs nothing from him and he's allowed to do whatever the hell he wants in his free time and maybe stumble into a few kills if he happens to be in the area. Someone asked, how do we feel about the Sylas jungle? Any strong thoughts? Does that feel like, that just feels to me like another LJL special that we're never going to see again?
Apparently, it was his blocker pick, and he had performed really well on it historically. So, like, if that's the case, like, I love when people bring pocket picks to Worlds, but the champion itself is not fantastic in the jungle role at the moment.
And it is absolute shit. The clear is fucking terrible. We've both played it. We both know it.
Thoughts on Twitch blind pick? I think that Twitch is not being punished enough in these blind picks. Like the fact that Twitch Alistar got out of lane scot-free, especially when you had counter pick and you pick the Bard into it. And I agree that Bard Ezreal should be really strong, but I also think that we have to think differently about laning against Twitch, because like Twitch can really screw you, especially in an Ezreal matchup where you don't actually have kill pressure on him after initial backs, depending on kind of like what you itemize. I don't know. I feel like Twitch is still like weak in lane, but not as weak as I think people seem to remember him being, and that's also why we've seen like the return and the rise. But basically he just can't be punished in lane phase anymore, and then he gets to scale really beautifully. I wish that people would build Muramana on him though, because the damage is still there. And in talking with Crownshot, he thinks that Tristana Taric would be an excellent counter to Twitch Rakan lanes, obviously because Rakan is moving in straight lines. Taric would work really well, and also Taric ultimate can completely fuck a Twitch ultimate, and then like the level 2 all-in of a Tristana Taric is pretty fucking terrifying.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I also think that like I had like, obviously I'm from the OPL, so take everything I say with a grain of salt, but we used to say you can pick any AD carry you want on the patch and support will probably win lane if you get counter pick. And that's why like red side pick Twitch blind pick isn't all that scary, because if you get support counter pick, like, and you can take like Enchanter into Braum or Taric into Braum or something like that, or you can take Rakan into Braum, which is what we're seeing like a lot, right? Like they're taking like Nautilus or Braum. For some reason, things like Thresh and like these heavy punish lanes have just disappeared off the face of the earth. Then like the support counter pick will probably get you through the lane.
I don't know if it's because the supports just don't want to play it or what is happening, but you were right. Like Thresh is completely gone, and we were talking about this before the show started. Like, are there any trends to take from Playins that we think will be across like every single meta as soon as we go into groups? And I feel like Spawn, you were good on the call about like farming junglers versus like utility junglers versus like a carry junglers will be an interesting discussion. Alistair and Rakan really rising up, and Twitch, but otherwise I don't really see like this meta carrying over into groups.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think it's too slow. I think like the teams that we will see playing groups are actually much quicker teams.
I also just think that like if there's any one section of the map that I think we've learned the least about, I think it is bot lane, because I think that like people clearly haven't figured out bot lane, and I think the evidence of that is the fact that we saw Twitch Rakan once from Liquid, and then people just started ram jamming it and then just like forcing fights early with it, and like it just feels like bot lane, and then the Ashe being 2-6, and that still feels to me like a champion that should on paper still be good. So bot lane feels to me like we're going to see the most changes in actual groups.
And I'd have to ask other support players and other pro players. Spawn, let me know how you feel about this. That like the Rakan pick might be there with the Twitch blind because it dissuades you picking Braum, and Braum obviously is a really good matchup into Twitch because his wall can really fuck up his ultimate. And so by picking Twitch and Rakan blind, the Rakan being there is like you want to pick Braum, but you don't, so you go for the Leona.
Yeah, 100% correct. And like I think like Leona is actually more of a skill matchup than Rakan play. Like as Rakan players get better, the Leona matchup becomes a little bit more difficult to navigate. So I think that like he's definitely not as bad as what he was, but there are certainly still ways that you can shut that lane down. But I do completely agree that you want Braum versus Twitch, and you cannot play Braum into Rakan. Like it's just genuinely like impossible matchup. Rakan just gets to scale for free, run around the map, and do whatever the fuck he wants. But I think like until Deft plays the 80 carry role, you never know what's going to be meta, because until the best has done it, Drakos, until the Lord and Savior of the 80 carry role, my man Deft, has been able to do something, you don't know whether it's really good or not. You need the alpaca to show you the way.
That's a strange way to spell reckless. That's a weird way to say double lift.
Okay,
that's a bizarre way to say Jackie Love.
Secondary shout out to Ashley Kang over at Horizon, because she just did a 40-minute interview with Deft, and an interview before that too. So if you are a Deft fan like Spawn is here, go check that out, because it was a really good interview. And like Deft has a fucking intense storyline, folks. He's getting old, okay? People are like, this boy needs to retire. You know what he's not doing? He's not retiring. You know what his support said? He wants to win World. I'm gonna get you that World trophy. Deft laughed it off, but then Deft cried when they qualified for Worlds. He cried because he knows it's his time, folks. Deft is in it. Still worse than Ruler, but Deft is in it.
Deft.
I love him so much. I actually like I have an EDG jacket with Death's signature on it, and it's honestly every single time my team goes to a final, I promise my AD carry. If you win this final for me, if you take me to Worlds or MSI, I will give you the jacket with Death's signature. And none of my AD carries have been able to take it off me, but like honestly, it's my most prized possession ever.
It's sick, dude. Why are we seeing... Okay, last question. Why are we seeing so many Camille? She's a safe blind pick with Grasp. She's essentially really hard to all in, and she does a lot of good shit.
She also
People
provides
like her.
engage for teams and the ability to side lane. She's got a lot of good
Also,
things going
only
for her.
loses skill matchups. Like apart from Jax, which is just an absolute train wreck, but not everyone plays Jax. Like even the Fiora matchup is winnable nowadays for the Camille. So like everything is just a skill matchup with her at worst.
Yeah, do we know what games groups we're going to be casting? Well, Spawn, are you on cooldown tomorrow? You're going to continue to be on cooldown, correct?
I'm on cooldown tomorrow, so I'm just doing cooldown. Like as I said, don't throw hateful DMs at me unless you really want to, because I'm just doing cooldowns for the foreseeable future on Worlds. The delay that we put up with for this show is I think like 277 milliseconds, which is doable for a talk show, but for a cast would be like super rough, I think. So yeah, cooldowns for me, baby.
Yep.
And
Me and
Drakos and I
Frosk
are
will
casting
be...
on Tuesday?
Yeah, so we're casting one of the 3v4 best of fives. I'm not sure if we'll be casting LGD versus.
If
Rainbow
I don't get to
Seven.
cast the LGD clusterfuck, I'm gonna be really upset. Like
That's good
almost.
because I don't think people want that one.
I
If I had
one.
to guess, people don't want. They
But,
would much rather cast
no,
like
here's
the
the
Mad
rule,
or
though,
the
Drakos.
TL or
If-
the Legacy one.
You and I are casting that. Like I'm gonna straight up go to my producer and be like, I promise I will button up. I will cast super professional for the rest of the tournament. Like, please don't judge me on this one. But for that cast, I really just want to go off the rails.
Let me
like, I want to
unleash
have
the beast.
I want to just have a moment where I'm just like, I lose it.
I think you can have that moment.
Oh,
I obviously have no decision-making power.
When
but
I
I'm telling you
literally
right now, you
saw
have my
Ornn
blessing.
upgrade the cleaver, I fucking lost it. I was like, give me the pro view. I need to see the replay. Was it a misclick? What the fuck happened here?
Yeah, he upgraded. He got the IE.
And then
okay,
Ash got away with like 10 HP. And if he had fucking upgraded the Death Crown, she wouldn't have survived.
But that's not his fault. You don't get a pick. You just
No,
right
I
click 'em.
understand that that's not his fault. But the thing was, is at that point, the Ludens wasn't complete. He could have just clicked the death cap.
Wait, no, the Ludens was complete first. He hadn't finished the death cap.
No,
Wait,
he
what?
had the death cap and the cleaver at the same time, and he opted into the cleaver.
Oh, got it. He opted in the cleaver. I was like, what are you talking about? You finished death cap before Ludens?
And
I was like, did
then
I
he
miss
was like,
something?
I guess I'll do the Ludens Echo. Well, excuse me, Shea was like, I really want the Ludens Echo. Yes, please.
That extra
Yeah.
mana really does it for me, folks. I scale well with that extra mana. Anyway, any final words? Follow Spawn Law. He's been the shill here, but I'm gonna shill for him. Follow Spawn. He deserves more followers. He's chilling. You can learn more about the OPL and any international league and what it's like to be a dad when he tweets dad tweets.
I actually
subscribe to the
showed-
YouTube channel, please. Please subscribe
Yeah.
to the YouTube channel. I need it.
The YouTube's great.
people
I
up.
actually showed Drakos like a clip of Jasper earlier today. So yeah, the one thing I can promise you is my League of Legends analysis will be about semi-relevant regions, but my children are adorable. That's all I'm gonna say.
Yes, chat. If you want to see his cute son naming the planets, if that will like warm your cold icy hearts after watching LGD play so much League of Legends, then this is the Twitter.
It's a
account for
palate
you.
cleanser.
Yeah,
After the
other than
LGD
that-
best of 5, you know where to go. Just to like really
Yes.
feel good again.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. So this has been episode 3, Playins Day 3. We'll be back for day 4.
Wait,
Obviously,
we're missing one segment before you do close out. Very quickly. Our player of the day was Kai Wing.
oh,
he's
that's right.
insane.
Man
He
is
is insane.
amazing. Just beautiful performance, huge champion pool, so good for this team. Big poggers. That's it. That's all I got.
Yeah, I completely agree. Honestly, he has been the most surprising player for me because I believe last time he was at Worlds, he actually got eliminated at Playins stage. Correct me if I'm wrong. Kai Wing and Unified, not exactly the fans of the international stage, but this time around, he looks.
Yeah, in a sea full of messy League of Legends, Kai Wing was the
feels-
clean part.
he
You
feels
know,
good on
he
the
cleaned
eyes.
up the oil spill that we witnessed today. He was the green piece in today's massive BP spill. So,
Get me off this.
Drakos.
It's
That's
3
my-
a.m.
It's 3 a.m. Anyway, it's 6:43 here. It's not that late. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. We'll be back tomorrow with more Worlds After Dark. Until then, enjoy. Look forward to that supermassive TL match, and we'll talk to you later.
Wow.
Wave. Hold on, I gotta turn up the music. They could still hear you.
Oh, shit.
Yep. Okay, guys, hop in, get all aboard, start filing in to Ender's stream. Come on, go, 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 go. Everyone, all aboard, buckle in, put your arms, gotta keep them inside the package. If you want to see great European League of Legends flex, that's where you're going. Okay, everyone, wave, wave, guys. Here goes the bus. Bye.
I think Ender's coming around here for dinner.
I may have sent them